Thanks, Xfinity. So let's get back to where we were, so we're not really going over the same material. All of this is the material that I went over in yesterday's class being class 118 on February 7th. So there's our definitions again. And there is our mnemonics using an acronym, right? A mnemonic. And we also saw the definition there of an acronym, right? So where we left off was that, you can't make an acronym out of everything. And sometimes it's harder to remember the acronym. Like I can't remember the other acronym for the Great Lakes. Yeah, I cannot. Oh, horrible. And I'm still trying to think of it. Of course, that's what the silence is. She's still trying to think of it. Why doesn't she just let it go? Now, here is my visual for rehearsing. Rehearsing. Taking time to repeat something over and over again, right? That is how we remember phone numbers, but we use our phones to remember phone numbers, so we're not using our brains. And remember, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that is a fact with the brain. If you don't use it, you lose it. And with every part that we're talking about now. So, organizing. If you don't use the part of your brain that's organizing things, you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. I should write that one down too, shouldn't I? Use it or lose it. I'm going to use that one. That's on the mind. Use it or lose it. Use your organization skills or lose them. Use your walking skills or lose them, right? Use your communication skills or lose them. And that's across the board. If you didn't use your eyes when you were an infant, you know what would happen? You'd lose your eyes. No, you wouldn't lose your eyes, but you could. I don't know. But if they were closed off like this, you would, right? But if you aren't introduced to color when you're born, your eyes won't know it. You don't use it, you lose it, right? How do you know that? How did they learn that? Did they blind? No, but they did do it to kittens. I'm just saying. Some scientists really are despicable. You know, well, it's early birds, so let's just keep going with what we have to learn, early birds, because we learn the most. You learn the most, early birds. You already learned how to read in this class. Yeah, you did. If you go through, you already learned how to read. And in fact, if you remember sort of where we left off, was that to buy different reading level books, right? Is happening. I know how she do that. She totally went to a subject that was like probably day 50 and pulled it out of her. Mark Brown, Arthur, Clean Your Room, a level 2 book. So learning to read, what you want to do is you can go through the alphabet and sight words, right, on some of our old programs. But then what you want to do is you just want to get some learning to read books. DW helped Arthur carry boxes of junk outside. Wow, that's a lot of words that you would know only at a level 2 reading skill. And by the time you get to level 3 or 4, you really are reading books just like this, just like the one that we're reading in our reading room. Okay? So, if you don't use it, you lose it. Holy smokes, she remembered what she was talking about. What is going on here? It's miraculous. Come over here and watch. It's miraculous how she remembers what she's saying. Watch, I bet she forgets now. I might. I might. But what I'm saying is Use it or lose it. I didn't forget. Use it or lose it. And right now we need to use or lose our organizing skills. All right? I'll tell you, even preparing for this class, right? I lost it. Blah! I don't mean like that, right? Whoops. What's not? Ugh. I meant mnemonics. I have a whole presentation on mnemonics. I did that presentation a long time ago for work, for when I was working at Wayne State. I actually not only learned it, I developed it. And you know what? I forgot. I told you I cannot find that file because I've got half my boxes packed up. I can't even wash the floor because I can't even move these boxes. They're so heavy, or vacuum over there. I could pick up the socks, but you need to be quiet about that. You need to be quiet about that. Thanks for not saying anything about the socks. I appreciate it. So, you have to, we're going to learn a mnemonic today that takes a lot of effort to learn. And you're going to see why maybe you don't spend time learning the mnemonic. You like to say that, don't you? Mnemonic, mnemonic, mnemonic. Maybe you don't spend time learning the mnemonic. Maybe you spend time rehearsing what you're supposed to learn, building meaning out of what you're supposed to learn, instead of learning a mnemonic. We changed our memory workshops over at Wayne State to focus less on mnemonics and focus more on building meaning, right? When we rehearse, we can rehearse our spelling words, which really isn't meaningful. That's rehearsing. We're saying it over and over. We're repeating it over time. That's exactly what this picture is showing. You're listening to something, then time goes by. Listen to it again. Time goes by. That's what the picture shows. Learn your spelling words. I just got kicked out. So, the problem might be that I have too much going on my windows. Let me just take a look at what I've got going on. Nope, not too much. 25 icons on my window, and then I got a second window. But only 3, and those are all finders, which is the reason for my problem. Organizing my desktop. I wish you could see a picture of my desktop right now. I could take a picture, but that'd take me 5 minutes to figure out how to do that. All kinds of icons there. And even that needs to be organized, right? And I usually organize it across, honestly, 3 pages. But I did that when I was teaching. So I had one desktop for one of my classes, another desktop for a second, and a third desktop for a third class, and sometimes a fourth for a fourth class, and sometimes a fifth for a fifth class. And so the kind of slicing Oakland University has been doing to me. It's criminal. And that also, early birds, brings me to another point here. You can rehearse all kinds of things, can't you, in your head? You can rehearse your spelling words. You can rehearse phone numbers. You can rehearse important presidents' names, right? You can rehearse yesterday's bad events. You could play them over in your mind again and again. You could play over in your mind and rehearse the worst day of your life. You could rehearse future bad decisions. Now, which one of the rehearsing do you think is going to benefit you the most? Right? So, we have to think about what we're rehearsing because we're building habits. Use it or lose it. That's a habit. Use it, build a habit, or lose it. Just like I said I did with the mnemonics. Right? If you drive somewhere and you remember where you're going, but you don't go there for years, you might forget. I don't ever forget how to go back to Fremont, though. Never. I don't think I'll ever forget how to go back to Fremont. In fact, I think I could have brain damage and lose short-term memory and still have the long-term memory, because that's demonstrated in science. It is. And still be able to drive back to Fremont. What up? I know. That's what rehearsing does. Rehearsing does that. Okay? So use it or lose it. But make sure you're making the best use of organizing your memories. Don't organize those negative, bad memories that make you go to sleep crying. Don't organize those memories. You want those memories disorganized. You don't want a straight shot to those bad memories, do you? It's not that you don't have them. It's not that maybe sometimes it might not benefit you to think about why you were in those predicaments. Of course it would, right? But you shouldn't have a straight shot to it, because you built a habit of going back to that memory over and over and over again. Sorry for the choppy video. I explained it. It is what it is. They kicked me out, dropped the frame, dropped the whole thing. So it's a choppy day. We're on choppy waters today. Xfinity, you got me in choppy waters. So rehearse. Ask yourself questions. This is the biggest thing I think that you could do. Let's say that you did something very simple, like you can't remember where you put your homework. Ask yourself questions. Where do I usually put my homework? Now, the right answer is in my homework folder. But if you can't find it there, likely you're not one of those people who go and put your homework in your homework folder. So you don't have to have what would be the perfect answer. You have to have the truth. Ask yourself questions. Where do you usually put your homework after you're done? Do you fall asleep with it in the bed next to you, and so sometimes it gets dumped off the side of the bed? If that's true, then you would look on the side of your bed. And that wouldn't be the first place that you would look unless you thought about how you organize things. Okay, so ask yourself some questions. Where do you usually put your homework? My son he had 5 answers for that. I usually stuff it in my bag. Hold on, we're kicked out again. I usually fold it over and put it in my book, right? I said, in case you missed it, ask my son. He had all different places, right, for it. He could never find his homework. And the problem was that he never believed he could find his homework. He never believed he could find it. Why didn't he believe he could find it? Because he didn't ask himself questions about where it might be. Look for reminders. Look for reminders, right? And so those reminders really are oftentimes right in front of your face. And what I mean by that is that's what you want to do. You want to put the reminders in front of your eyeballs. When you're looking for reminders of something, you want to put it in front of your eyeballs. I had guests here yesterday, and I was looking for my pink. I was looking for this. And do you know what I didn't do? I didn't actually look around. Because had I looked around, I would have found it right underneath this book. And in this pink book, what I was looking for was a list of books that I wrote down, right? So I was organized by writing some things down, but I didn't look for reminders. Do you want to know why? Because I didn't believe I could find it. You want to know why? Because I have boxes all over the place. There's a reason why I didn't look for it. And I didn't look for it because I didn't believe I would find it. And I didn't believe that I would find it because I didn't look for the reminders. It's interesting because the people who came over yesterday for a visit were from our Watchtower community, and they're sitting, had I looked for reminders, they not only would have found their one book that I'm studying from, the second book that I asked for, right, that this one was laying here on the table, they would have seen this book. I could have picked up this book. It was right here. So there was the second book. There is a pile of their brochures, a small pile of their brochures, because I've been cleaning things up, right there on the table. If I would have looked for reminders, I would have seen that small pile. And then as they were leaving the house, again, I'm packing and cleaning, I had a large pile like this right there on a shelf there. Not actually a shelf, on the top of a box. It was on the top of a box. And so I could have showed them, right? I would have been proud to show them, look at all the studying that I have been doing of your publications, right? Okay, so look for reminders, and that means physically look, right? When you use your eyes to look for reminders, it literally stirs other thoughts in your head. Remember what we've said. We've said what we're trying to do, using a big word, is make associations. Make associations. So I'm going to put this underneath my chin. No, I'm not. I'm going to put this right here. To make an association is like this line between these two books. That's an association. It's like the line between these two books. What's the line between these two books? I'm going to show you the names of them. What's the line between these two books? The line between these two books is Watchtower. Watchtower is the publisher. Watchtower associates this book with this book. What's the association between these two books? Association, what is the similarity between these two books? Well, they're books. That's an association. A physical characteristic, right? That's a physical characteristic. They're both books. But there's more associations than just the one association, right? That's what we were doing here in the brain. That's what we were doing there in the brain, weren't we? All those arrows, that's like this. That's like this arrow. What is similar between this book and this book? What's similar? This, whatever this is. They physically look the same, right? They are similar in their cover. I guess it's cover. Why am I not thinking it? Because they have gold leaf and they're a single color. This is red, this is blue, primary colors. There are all kinds of ways we can associate these two books. Draw an arrow in our brain. When we are looking at physical characteristics of something, looking for reminders, looking with our eyeballs, we are getting physical, mental images in our head. We're going to talk about mental images. Maybe it was in this class. Probably was, because we're talking about memory. So mental images, right? So we get when I look at this, it gives me a mental image of things that are associated with this. These are book titles. Life, how did it get here? It gives me a mental image of the book that we're actually using in our DIY psychology, right? Oops, I'm on the wrong page in that class. And here are pictures in that book. So when I read that statement, or when I when I read that title, it makes me think of this book. Exactly, gives me a mental image of this book. Life, how did it get here? So right now I'm on the wrong page. When I literally look for reminders, I get mental images in my head. That's what it produces. All right. And then the last slide here is write things down. Write things down. Now I can look for something else besides that book. I've got some new association that I made myself. A list. Remember yesterday, that was a memory strategy, making a list, right? So write things down. All of these suggestions are suggestions that help you elaborate. This is where we're going to pick up on Tuesday as you start early birds. The first ones to start your 4 days off. But hey, feel free to join me in the Bookless classroom where we are talking about such interesting things. I don't even remember. I was working on it at 4:30, but it's not that. Oh, yes, we were talking about Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy versus Ferguson is separate but not equal. Always remember that. I forgot it. Another association that I forgot about. Use it or lose it. Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. It was tossed out with Brown versus the Board of Education, and I believe it's 1954. I think it's 1950. I don't know why. Why am I thinking it's 1952? Let's take a quick look. We are going to. You know we're going to. We haven't ended this class yet. Don't you worry. There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna get you guys in this too. Okay, so there it is. Yes, it is 1954. So Brown versus the Board of Education. If you look where the green is there, 58 years later, after Plessy versus Ferguson, the court overturned it in the Brown versus the Board of Education. What's all that about? Watch my Bookless classroom coming up next. No, it's about use it or lose it. Thanks for joining me here in the classroom. I'm the teacher. We are on day 119. Who could believe it? 4 days off. See you on day 120. Thanks. Where are we?